Earlier in the show, we talked about fees going up again in the airline business, up to $400 or $450 just for checking a bag that might be overweight. It's pretty outrageous. But that's just the beginning, folks, because there's a proposal on the table right now. Are you sitting down? For a new $100 departure tax on every flight, and to possibly do even more damage and triple, did you hear me? Triple the passenger security tax to reduce the deficit. And joining me now from the airline transportation, actually I can never get this right, the Air Transport Association in Washington, D.C. Please forgive me for that, Sharon Pinkerton. Hey, Sharon.
Hi, good to be with you, Peter.
So, Sharon, how real is this? I know that if you look at taxes as a general rule, for example, I've seen airfare ads. British Airways had one last year, which we actually talked about on the air. New York to London, $198 round trip, and that was their fare. Then we deconstructed it and found out by the time you finished paying the taxes, the actual fare was $700. And the actual fare, the actual money that British Airways received was something like $98. How do you operate an airline that way?
It's pretty difficult. In fact, a lot of people don't know it, but air travel is actually taxed higher than booze, beer, cigarettes, and guns. All things that supposedly government is trying to discourage people from using. So, Peter, we're very, very concerned about the administration's proposal. Very disappointed that they're treating airline passengers like the nation's piggy bank. They are proposing $35 billion of new taxes on airlines and airline passengers over the next 10 years.
I mean, when you think about this, and let's deconstruct this. Let's come up with a round number. I mean, I come up with an airline fare of $300, and maybe that $300 is really what I'm going to pay in total. Now let's start doing the math. All of a sudden you have a PFC, a passenger facility charge, a security tax, maybe a departure tax. Then you have excise taxes. I mean, there's so many taxes that come throwing in that the actual fare, if you took all of that away, would be like $104.
It's completely out of control, and we are mounting a major campaign here in Washington, and a grassroots campaign to say email, write, and phone call your member of Congress and tell them that we don't want to solve the nation's deficit problem on the backs of airline passengers. I think one of the most offensive things about the administration's proposal is not only are they proposing to triple the security tax, but they want most of that tax to go to fix the deficit. So all the hassles that we encounter at the airport when we go taking off our shoes, taking out our computer, we're trying to make that system more efficient, but they're not even going to spend the money on that.
All right, so let's go. This is what really gets me angry. I'm with you all the way on this. If you're going to tax me a passenger facility charge or a departure tax, whatever you want to tax me, shouldn't that go back, assuming we're going to get saddled with that anyway, shouldn't that go back to fixing the infrastructure of the airline experience?
It certainly should, and in this country it always has until now, until this proposal, which is one of the reasons we've just got to beat it back. But the truth of the matter is, Peter, we're already paying almost $17 billion annually to the federal government, and just in these PFC, security, departure, all of these taxes. We're paying much more than our fair share. Like I said, we're paying more than booze, cigarettes, and guns are paying.
All right, I have an idea. Bear with me on this. Let's assume that the administration gets that $100 departure tax on the table. Let's say it actually passes. Let's make a different rule that $100 departure tax goes to reducing the cost of Starbucks at the airport. How about that?
I'm glad you're maintaining a sense of humor about this, but we're very, very, very concerned.
I know you are. I'm not trying to make light of it, but I'm just saying, as an example of where you spend your money, certain taxes are inevitable, and I understand why they're doing it. But the part that I don't get is why it doesn't go back to the infrastructure. Because if it's just going to decrease the deficit, it's not really helping me as a passenger.
absolutely right. So we've got airline passengers, again, trying to solve the deficit problem, which is just not an appropriate policy. But the fact of the matter is, Peter, we'd oppose this even if it were going back into the system because we're already paying enough. We pay just to DHS and TSA to keep their burgeoning employees going, all the new equipment they're buying. We pay them $3.4 billion a year already, and they want to triple that?
Well, I'll go one better. Those $180,000 scanning machines with some guy in the back room looking at your image named Vern, for me, I think that they could replace all those machines, save all that money, and just train their people to have a conversation with me to figure out if I'm really the person I'm saying I am and save a lot of money that way.
We couldn't agree more. I think the government needs to do a better job doing what they're doing with the billions of dollars we're giving them now.
All right. Sharon Pinkerton, of course, from the Air Transport Association. Thanks for talking to us, Sharon. We really appreciate that. And by the way, that's $100.
Talk to you later.
You got it. And when we talking to us, Sharon, we really appreciate that. And when we come back, you know, these taxes are crazy, and I know that the ATA is opposed to them in principle. I'm opposed to them, not necessarily in principle. I'm opposed to them in direction. If you're going to tax me, spend the money in an area that's actually going to support the experience I've just had, and not just nail me on that.